They are far from the roads less traveled, but now a new path is being paved for both the Gardiner and the DVP. The high stakes over highways and the dramatic deal to get Toronto's books back in the fast lane. Good evening. This road reversal and a role reversal, all part of a $1 billion agreement between Toronto and Queen's Park.
A trade-off meant to ease some of the city's financial pain, but this big give doesn't come without some take. Our coverage begins with CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris. Siobhan.
Nathan, the Premier was candid, and he says he didn't want to take on responsibility for the Gardiner and DVP. But he says negotiations like this are about compromise, and he thinks it's a good sign if parties end up half happy. A handshake and a hug to mark a new agreement on money for the province's biggest city.
This deal is historic, is huge.
A deal that sees the province take back control and funding of the expensive Don Valley Parkway and Gardiner Expressway, a duty pushed onto the city's plate in the late 1990s, one a series of politicians has begged the province to take back.
You know you have a good deal when both sides aren't too happy. If anyone thinks I want the DVP and the Gardiner, no, I don't. But that's our responsibility. I go back to my days at City Hall. That was like an 800-pound gorilla on your back.
With that weight lifted off Toronto,
the city will be able to spend billions more on affordable housing, fixing transit, and building communities with all the things we love in the neighborhoods, whether it's community centers, libraries, parks.
Separately, Ontario is giving Toronto $1.2 billion over the next 3 years to help with some operating needs.
More police officers to make sure the TTC is safe when people use it, building homes and shelters.
There's also cash to run the long-delayed Eglinton Crosstown and the also under-construction Finch West LRT lines. A promise of funding for 55 new subway trains for Line 2, if the federal government matches it. To make it all click, the city has given up its resistance to the redevelopment of Ontario Place. The mayor still feels the lakefront should be a public park.
The land belongs to the provincial government, and we do not have the authority to stop the development.
There is a new openness to rethinking plans for $650 million underground parking garage on the waterfront.
Maybe that's not the best place where we had it, so let's move it. Let's move it over to Exhibition Stadium, have more open space towards the lake.
There's also a commitment to having some sort of science programming at the current Science Centre site after it moves to Ontario Place. The Premier and the Mayor both talked today about the importance of having the federal government at this table. They're calling on them to get involved again and to bring more money to that table. There's also an acknowledgement that these conversations will be ongoing, that there will be more negotiations down the road. They want to keep talking and then agree to a parameter for the next round of a funding plan by 2025. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
All right, thank you, Siobhan. This is being called a game changer, and it's easy to understand why. There's a lot of money on the line. So what will this mean for Canada's largest city, and how much space does this give the mayor to focus on her priorities? CTV's Natalie Johnson is live with more. Natalie.
Hi, Nathan. Well, Mayor Chow is optimistic that this new deal will unlock billions of dollars for Toronto, giving the city a little more wiggle room just in time for the 2024 budget.
10 weeks after they agreed to work together on a financial fix for the cash-strapped city. The mayor and the premier hailed the plan as a turning point for Toronto.
It just really unlocked the potential for the City of Toronto's budget.
This is a massive, massive deal to take the burden off the people and the taxpayers of Toronto.
Toronto City Hall has been grappling with a systemic shortfall, a budget gap of nearly $50 billion over the next 10 years. Uploading the Gardiner and the DVP removes significant strain on the state of good repair budget, the city no longer responsible for the single largest line on the capital side.
We can now have the budget room to deal with some of the urgent problems.
Everything the mayor said, from potholes to housing.
The expressway upload takes up to $7.6 billion off the city's books, according to the Premier, money that can be reallocated to other unfunded projects, like the city's plan to build 65,000 new rent-controlled homes by 2030.
I feel like a weight has been lifted. We have wiggle room. We have a great down payment.
It will also mean that the two expressways will remain toll-free, according to the Premier, and spells the end of Chow's plan to rebuild the elevated eastern portion of the Gardiner as a ground-level boulevard.
Anyone who's east of the Don knows it's been a horror show for the past couple of years. The idea of taking an elevated highway and slamming it down onto Lakeshore was just ludicrous.
On the operating side, the $1.2 billion over 3 years for LRT, shelters, transit safety and more doesn't dig the city out of its immediate shortfall, which is $1.5 billion for the next year alone. But the city manager says it is a significant start.
Was this a forever change in the operating side? No, but it's very different than the traditional, well, let's see what we have at the end of the year, and we sort of hold our breath heading into our budget.
Ultimately, is this deal a relief for you?
It's a big relief.
The city's budget burden now a little lighter, with Toronto tax time looming large.
Former Mayor John Tory did previously want the province to upload those two expressways, but at the time, Queen's Park dismissed the idea. Tory tweeted today that he applauds the deal that Chow was able to strike. Reporting live at City Hall, I'm Natalie Johnson. Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. And you can read much more about this so-called New Deal on our website. Our team is crunching the numbers and looking at the specifics. You can find that coverage at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading this CTV News app.
We turn next to a horrific story on the roads. A weekend collision in Cottage Country, killing 5 people.
4 of those victims were teenagers. A crash leaving an entire community struggling to comprehend what could have gone wrong. CTV's Janice Golding reports.
There is no remaining sign of the devastating crash that claimed 5 lives on Highway 60 near Huntsville this weekend, but the impact has resounded through the community.
It's devastating, and would say it's not something we've seen in this area in some time.
Ontario Provincial Police say they were called to a crash near Hidden Valley Road shortly after 11 p.m. Saturday. When they arrived, they encountered a scene of devastation. 14 boys in one vehicle and a woman in her 40s in another, all but one already dead.
It's unbelievably devastating because there are kids, a partner.
The driver of one vehicle has been identified as 42-year-old Jessica Ward. On a GoFundMe fundraiser, Family wrote, Jessica leaves behind her 2 precious children aged 17 and 14 to deal with this unimaginable loss. Please continue to rally around Jessica's family as they try to navigate life without her. Meanwhile, the community hospital where Ward worked as an accounting clerk wrote online, Jessica is fondly remembered by many for her kind heart, infectious laugh, and vibrant joie de vivre. She would light up with stories about her children and their dog. Jessica always brought a smile to their room with her quick wit and dry sense of humor. She will be remembered and missed by many on our team.
We're a town, but we're not a big community. Therefore, something like this touches on so many lives.
Police say 4 males between 15 and 17 were headed westbound on Highway 60 in a Mercedes SUV when they collided with Ward's eastbound Ford SUV. She died at the scene along with 3 of the boys. One teen was transported to hospital but would not survive his injuries.
Huntsville OPP is working with the local police forces to communicate with the families.
Police say the teens were from North York and Richmond Hill. The Chinese consulate, meanwhile, has confirmed the boys were Chinese international students. OPP have not yet determined the cause of the crash, but say the weather was clear. Janice Golding, CTV News.
Straight ahead, coming face to face with hunger. The perfect storm making it tougher for more people to make ends meet. The largest single-year rise in food bank history.
Plus, infrastructure upgrades turn University Avenue upside down. How many months the delays will last.
But first, let's take a live look outside on this Monday evening and look at that beautiful scene to be skating down at Nathan Phillips Square, and parts of our viewing area getting their first taste of snow this season. There's definitely a chill in the air as we start this last week of November. But look, Michelle Jobin, that's how you kind of lean in. When it gets cooler, you enjoy all that the wintry weather has to offer.
Definitely the upside, Michelle, of dealing with these more wintry conditions, as long as you're bundled up, because we are dealing with considerable wind chills. But yes, also snowfall. We're actually getting snowfall reported at Pearson Airport. Really, as you can see, you can make out sort of the enhancement of this snowfall off the upper Great Lakes. And we are seeing some persistent snow squalls today, multiple watches and warnings associated with that. Goderich has now been upgraded into a warning as winds have shifted and we're getting higher amounts of accumulation there and heavier bands. We'll break this all down, but sustained winds right now, 22 kilometers an hour, gusting up to 33 kilometers an hour in the Toronto area. They were gusting over 50 kilometers an hour earlier. That's giving us a wind chill of -8 right now through the overnight period, -4, feeling like -12 with flurries. I'll have more details coming up. Back to you.
Thanks, Michelle. Well, the stats are startling, but sadly, perhaps not a surprise. Food bank use across Ontario is seeing a record surge.
And behind each number is a real human struggle, a challenge facing more people just trying to put a meal on the table. CTV Sean Leithong is live with more. Sean.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, the challenge here at the Daily Bread Food Bank is to keep up with that demand. Like you said, it's the largest single increase this past year that they've ever had. The fear is that it's only going to go up.
The sorting area inside the Daily Bread Food Bank is busier than ever. With demand way up, clients like Ryan Patchison say this is the reality of an increasing cost of living.
The inflation of food, the constant increasing of housing prices, these things, they cause physical harm.
Patchison is on ODSP and has been using the food bank since just before the pandemic. He says the number of visitors is going up.
This is anybody. This is your friends, your families, your neighbors.
A report released today from Feed Ontario says emergency food banks had 800,000 visitors last year, which is a 38% increase. 5.9 million total visits, a 36% increase, and 40% of visitors are first-time users. Daily Bread CEO Neil Hetherington says what may be most alarming is the timing of the increased demand.
This is the very first time that food bank usage has risen while unemployment has reduced, and that should be incredibly worrying for everyone reading this report.
The fastest rising group of food bank clients that we are seeing is actually employed individuals, and it's increased 37% in the last year alone.
While the food bank has been able to keep up with demand to this point, there's fear they will soon hit a breaking point.
Pre-pandemic, the food bank was an $8 million organization, but because of the increased demand, they've had to fundraise more, all the way up to $30 million just to keep up.
Hetherington says that he fears when unemployment does rise, services may be cut.
We might not shut down, but we may have to say to a single mom, listen, we can't give you 3 days worth of food this week as we normally would. It's 2 days worth of food.
And this morning at Queen's Park, representatives from local food banks and Feed Ontario were sounding the alarm.
We are trying to indicate or be the canary in the coal mine to let them know that there is a collapse coming and we need to turn the tide before we get there.
The report calling on the Ontario government to invest in affordable housing and improve social assistance programs, or they fear an increase in those experiencing homelessness.
To give you some context about these numbers, they were taken between April of 2022 and March of 2023. At that time, the unemployment rate was back down to pre-pandemic lows, just at the low 5%. Since then, they've ticked up a little bit, so there's fear with the unemployment rate rising. The numbers in here could go way up. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leithong. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Sean. From hunger to another issue facing many GTA families.
Richmond Hill, the latest municipality in our area, receiving federal funding to build affordable homes. CTV's Raheem Ladani is live with more. Raheem.
Well, Michelle and Nathan, the city of Richmond Hill revamped its housing plan within 10 days of it being asked to do so by the federal government in order to access funding for it and to address its housing crisis. Meanwhile, other cities like the city of Toronto still have a lot of work to do before they can get any money. Cities across the country are facing a similar problem, a lack of affordable housing. However, Richmond Hill is a step closer to easing that struggle with a big boost to reduce barriers.
This will help us to build more housing, primarily in our corridor areas of our, like along Yonge Street and so on, where we've already designated it for growth, but it'll incentivize the building of housing that's more affordable and in a larger range of affordability.
Thanks to the federal government's Housing Accelerator Fund, the city is getting $31 million, which will support fast-tracking the building of 780 housing units over the next 3 years and spur the construction of more than 41,000 homes over the next decade.
These units that are going to be built, the new housing is going to allow young people, seniors to downsize as well, which I think is very important.
Last month, several other municipalities were accepted into the Accelerator Fund. Vaughan signed up for $59 million, Hamilton $93.5 million, and Brampton $114 million, while the City of Toronto is still waiting.
My sense is with the back and forth we're having with the Mayor of Toronto right now, that there's an opportunity for us to partner there as well.
Toronto was looking for $500 million from the federal government to follow through on its housing plan. However, Minister of Housing Sean Fraser told Mayor Olivia Chow he wants to see the city make 8 changes, including approving higher minimum height and density requirements near transit, streamlining building permits, eliminating parking minimums and caps for some multi-tenant housing near post-secondary institutions, and establishing pre-approved designs, including for 4-unit multiplexes. Minister Fraser says Toronto will very likely get the money if they adopt the recommendations, but if not, it could come at a cost.
To the extent that they demonstrate some lesser ambition, we will have to go back to understand the impact that will have on the number of homes that the city's likely to get built.
Torontonians will get a better sense of where this stands when City Council debates the issue on December 13th. So how will the money flow? Well, the municipalities will get 25% of the funding up front and then an additional 25% in each of the following 3 years, provided they reach their housing targets. Reporting live, I'm Raheem Ladani. Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Raheem. A 2-alarm fire at a North York homeless shelter has claimed a life. Emergency crews were called to the Toronto Plaza Hotel on Wilson Avenue near Jane Street shortly after 9:30 this morning. One person was pronounced dead at the scene, while a second person was treated for smoke inhalation. The property was converted to a temporary shelter in 2020 as part of the city's COVID-19 response.
I can tell you that the last time that it was inspected for fire code compliance was in July of 2023. Our community risk reduction unit was here. That inspection was completed and the building was in compliance with the fire code with no violations.
The cause of the fire is under investigation. The person who died has not yet been identified.
Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, you can expect even more gridlock in the downtown core.
Lane closures coming to University Avenue, just the latest artery largely severed, all thanks to seemingly never-ending construction work. CTV's Allison Hurst is live with more tonight. Allison.
And those construction work has started to begin along University Avenue from College to Dundas. The closures are already in place, but that closure will continue all the way to Queen Street.
Barricades are going up as construction gets underway along University Avenue.
Downtown for sure, like there's always traffic.
Southbound from College to Queen Street will be 1 lane as crews replace a 150-year-old water main.
It's beyond ridiculous. When I want to get somewhere in Toronto, I walk.
Along with the water main replacement, the work will include adding new safety measures to existing southbound cycle tracks, implementing a median between select southbound cycle tracks and vehicle lanes, and road resurfacing.
I'm glad I could walk, and my heart goes out to those folks who are driving, especially at crush times.
The closure is also happening at the same time as the Ontario line construction.
They kind of have to do it. We could wait forever for the Ontario line to be done. And, these are opportunities. Also, every time we wait, it costs more.
I don't think it's a good decision to do everything at once.
A city release states the work has been coordinated with Metrolinx, and that project will now occupy 2 northbound lanes on University from Queen Street to Armory.
It feels like blow after blow.
Meg Marshall with the Queen Street West BIA says they want to get ahead of it and remind people businesses are still open.
It's going to be stressful to get downtown. We want to remind people that you still come downtown. There's still so much to experience.
To deal with congestion, the city has expanded its traffic agents program, deploying an additional 15 for a total of 25 across the city, with 10 more in training.
Construction may need to be paused during the coldest winter months, so that would be from the end of December until early February. And during that time, the travel restrictions will be lifted. The work is supposed to be done by summer. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Allison. Hamilton police are investigating a fatal stabbing. It happened shortly after 8:30 this morning near Park Avenue North and York Boulevard. Police say a man in his 50s was taken to hospital with stab wounds, where he later died. Police say they arrested a 25-year-old man in connection with the stabbing, but have not laid any charges.
In the Middle East, more hostages being held by Hamas were released today in exchange for Palestinians imprisoned in Israel.
The swap came on the final day of a 4-day truce that has now been extended. CTV's Heather Wright reports.
Palestinians line up to purchase flour in Khan Yunis this morning as the temporary truce between Israel and Hamas is extended. We want to go back to our homes, this woman says. We don't want war at all. Soon there will be rain. Where are we going to stay? Today marks day 4 of a fragile ceasefire that will last until at least Wednesday. Hamas says the 2-day extension will carry the same terms as the initial pause, with Israel having previously said it would extend the truce by 1 day for every 10 hostages released. While today's exchange was delayed as both sides took issue with some names presented by the other, those differences have now been worked out. Qatar says 33 Palestinians were released from Israeli jails, while 11 hostages were released from Gaza. Extending the truce will also allow more aid to flow into Gaza. Over the weekend, humanitarian organizations have been able to distribute aid throughout the enclave.
The last few days have really given us an opportunity to get to some of the communities in the north, but it's really not enough. What we need is a long-term ceasefire.
At a military base in Israel, 2 girls reunited with their mother after 51 days in captivity. Daphna and Ella Al-Qayyam were kidnapped from Kibbutz Nahalaz on October 7th.
Come with me. No, come with me, come.
Their abduction live-streamed by Hamas. Their father, his partner, and her son were all killed. Another hostage released yesterday is 84-year-old Elma Avraham, whose daughter says is now fighting for her life. My mother's health was neglected for the entire length of her captivity, she says. Israel calling for the Red Cross to have access to all hostages still being held in Gaza. According to Qatar, the hostages released today include citizens of France, Germany, and Argentina, while the Palestinians include 30 minors and 3 women. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Elon Musk visited Israel today, meeting with senior government officials. The billionaire entrepreneur was accompanied by the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, on a tour of a kibbutz attacked by Hamas on October 7th. Musk has been assailed for his endorsement of an anti-Semitic post on his social media platform X. Today, he declared his commitment to do whatever is necessary to stop the spread of hatred.
Here in Canada, a 4th person has died following shootings in downtown Winnipeg on the weekend. Officers were called early Sunday morning to a home where they found 5 people wounded. A man and woman died at the scene, and another man died from his injuries in hospital. Another woman also later died. A 3rd man is in critical condition. Police say the investigation is in its early stages and no arrests have been made.
Alberta's premier invoked the province's Sovereignty Act today. It implements new measures in the fight against the Trudeau government's clean electricity rules.
They have been given an admonishment twice that this is not what cooperative federalism looks like. They cannot use their jurisdiction to trample on ours. And we remain at the table. I think we can work with them on developing a framework for small modular nuclear. We can develop a framework around hydrogen. And I think we can develop a framework around carbon capture. But we are not going to be bullied into giving up our jurisdiction. They have no right to be dictating to us. And we would ask for them to continue to work cooperatively with us, because I think we can.
Danielle Smith says Ottawa's plan to make Canada's electricity grid green by 2035 could wreak havoc on Alberta's natural gas-based grid. She has said she is fed up with the federal environment minister insisting he doesn't care about the Constitution. Stephen Guilbeault is calling today's move unacceptable.
In northern India, rescuers are drilling through a narrow pipe to reach 41 men stranded in a collapsed tunnel. Attempts to drill horizontally through debris that has trapped the construction workers have been hampered by damage to machinery. Now, crews are using handheld drilling tools for what is hoped to be the final stretch. The men have been getting food, water, light, and oxygen through another pipe.
3 days of memorials for Rosalind Carter have begun in Georgia.
When asked what she wanted to be remembered for, she said, "I would like to think that people understood that I took advantage of the opportunities that I was given, and I did the best that I could." And I have to say, Mrs. Carter did more than that, and we'll miss her terribly.
The former U.S. First Lady is lying in repose at the Jimmy Carter Presidential Library and Museum in Atlanta. The public will be able to pay their respects there. 2 funerals are planned tomorrow in Atlanta and Wednesday in the Carter's hometown of Plains. The global humanitarian passed away November 19th at the age of 96.
The Pope is scaling back some appointments in the coming days while being treated for a lung inflammation. The Pontiff met with the president of Paraguay today. Pope Francis is receiving antibiotics intravenously after bowing out of yesterday's weekly window greeting of people in St. Peter's Square. The Vatican says the inflammation was causing some respiratory difficulties, but the situation is improving.
A freighter traveling from Thunder Bay to Italy is going nowhere fast tonight. The vessel carrying 21,000 tons of wheat is stuck in the Detroit River. The crew discovered this morning that one of the thrusters was not operational and the ship ran aground. A tugboat is attempting to loosen the freighter, but there is no indication when it will be freed. The Coast Guard says there is no impact on the shipping lane that runs between Windsor and Detroit. Coming up, overcoming injury, defying expectations, a woman's challenging journey on a mission to explore the world despite disability.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, did you get your shopping done on Black Friday? Or maybe you're waiting until today, Cyber Monday, to find some deals online. Many people will be on their computers and phones until midnight trying to find a bargain. I'll have my report. That's just ahead.
It'll be feeling like -12 with a wind chill overnight, and when you wake up in the morning, not too much better during the day tomorrow than today. 0 feeling like -5 with that wind chill, and we do have some snowfall to talk about. In fact, it looks like the GTA will be getting some accumulation. I'll have more details coming up. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
If you didn't get any shopping done on Black Friday, you still got some time left to take advantage of deals for Cyber Monday.
The Retail Council of Canada says more Canadians are shopping online today, hoping to stretch their holiday spending dollars. Here's Pat Foran and a Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Michelle and Nathan. Retailers and consumers have both embraced Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and they've become the official kickoff to the holiday shopping season. With inflation and higher interest rates, almost twice as many Canadians will be online today trying to find a bargain. Some shoppers love the hustle and bustle of a busy mall when holiday shopping, while others would rather click on what they want to buy from the comfort of home. Last year, 21% of Canadians shopped online on Cyber Monday. This year, the Retail Council says the number will be 37% as more people try to find items on sale.
It's a really important time for both retailers and for consumers because they're looking for those deals this year more so than ever before.
In a time of rising costs, Canadians are being more careful and looking for value, promotions, sales, and free shipping. Retailers are having to slash prices on some items, and there are savings to be had. If you're shopping online, make sure you're on the correct website before making a purchase.
Just because you get a link that seems legitimate, don't take it as fact. It may actually be a link that's masquerading, taking you to a fake site where everything seems legitimate, but they're literally stealing your information.
To avoid scams, stick with reputable online sellers, pay with a credit card, not debit, use strong passwords, don't shop on public Wi-Fi, and carefully check for fraud after shopping by carefully going over credit card statements. And once you buy something online, watch out for texts and emails from shipping companies saying your package is on the way. Many of those are also scams.
We're going to see an increase in phishing-related attempts where you get a link and says, click here to track your package, but in actuality, it is a scam.
If a website asks to store your credit card information for faster checkout in the future, you should decline, as you could be more vulnerable if the retailer is hacked. And consider getting a separate credit card to use only for online shopping so it's easier to track your online spending. And even though you may find deals online, Credit Counseling Services caution not to be careful not to overspend. Making a list, setting limits, and keeping track of your purchases can help you avoid a huge credit card bill surprise after the holidays. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
All right, to the forecast, the month is winding down, and I guess we've had a pretty mild November, but not today. You can see people out there skating. It's what it's supposed to be.
It's actually kind of fun, yeah, to see people skating, enjoying. But if you look at this week, there's a lot going on weather-wise. There's flurries and lots happening.
Snow squalls north of the city and definitely temperatures that are sort of below our normals with added wind chill. But as we get to the end of the week, that's going to shift a little bit and we'll actually see a bit of a warm up. So things will be milder as we kick off December. But yes, definitely getting out there and enjoying some winter activities, a little bit more of the upside to these temperatures. I'll show you how things will play out in just a moment. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. So temperature-wise, yes, quite brisk right now. It is -2, feeling like -8. We actually did hit a high of 3 degrees, but that was around 11 a.m. today. So temperature started to drop as we got into the afternoon. We're now arriving at -2, and winds quite gusty, as we mentioned, and that's adding to how things feel. It's also driving the snow squalls off the upper Great Lakes, and we're really now starting to see them intensify in areas in the lee of Lake Huron, so Stratford, Goderich, heading down towards London as well. And I believe London is still in a snow squall watch, but you may be upgraded like your neighbors in Goderich have been. Guelph, you're also in a watch. We're also looking at areas like Peterborough and Northern Durham region currently being in a watch. But Owen Sound, Barrie, Midland, Orillia, heading up towards Parry Sound, this has been ongoing for you all day. You are in a snow squall warning, and that does continue. But anticipate the addition of some warnings as we get through the overnight period. Overnight tonight, -4, feeling like -12, and that's how we're going to be waking up first thing in the morning. And then getting to a high of just 0 degrees, feeling like -5. So definitely on the chillier side, and we've got those flurries. In fact, as we get into the morning tomorrow, Toronto, the GTA in general, has a good opportunity for seeing some accumulating snowfall. Not a lot, but a centimeter or so, and then maybe another centimeter as we get into Wednesday, and I'll show you why. So very gusty winds sort of opening the door to Arctic air here in behind this cold front, and that's why we get those winds driving over the upper Great Lakes, which are warmer relative to the air right now. Showing you here on our forecast radar as I stop at midnight, we're getting those bands extending Owen Sound to Bancroft down into the GTA just north of London here. And there we go. For your morning commute, it's going to be slippery. We're going to very likely see some flurries. So do be aware of that. Leave yourself some extra time. And then as we get into Wednesday, we've seen the squalls wrap up, but then we get another little system that's working its way across the upper Great Lakes. So as we get into tomorrow, 0 feeling like -5, -6 overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, waking up to a wind chill of -14 on Wednesday, still dealing with those flurries and windy conditions. Thursday up to 7 after some flurries in the morning, 6 degrees rain snow mix on Friday, Saturday for 2 degrees, and then milder as we get into Sunday and Monday. Back to you, Nathan.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Also tonight, a heads up if you fly Air Transat. Flight attendants threaten to stay grounded and walk the picket lines if no deal is reached, when passengers could be left stranded. An Ontario woman is sharing the adventure of a lifetime, defying the odds for an incredible experience.
El Camino is a challenging journey for anyone, but as CTV's Pauline Chan tells us, this was a team effort.
When Jen Sharinga was injured 10 years ago, her family feared her ability to explore the world had ended. But this past September, she, her family, and a team of helpers embarked on a challenging trek in Spain known as El Camino.
We were away for about 30 days, and we covered about 250 kilometers of the Camino, which is about 800 kilometers.
And if we bring this chair all the way up, she's able to hold herself up.
Caregiver Leigh Valiente was one of the 17 people who would help during the trip, and botulinum injections, a key part of Jen's treatment, were given in advance to help her muscles relax and prevent the spasticity that causes rigidity and pain.
Injections happened about a month prior to her trip, so she would have been experiencing maximal effect of those injections by about week 4 to week 6 post-injections.
Jen was able to bike 5 kilometers at a time, leading one group of fellow travelers to call her the Beast. And the whole square cheered when she arrived at their final stop.
The families are already planning Jen's next adventure, and they want to make sure that it maintains an element of rehab as well as social community.
Like any hike, it's a place where community naturally forms, and community is important for Jen's well-being.
And Harold Sharinga says not only did interactions with others encourage Jen.
If somebody thought that this was really hard, they looked at Jen and thought, if Jen can take this on, then I can certainly do it.
And Jen, who communicates by blinking, is looking forward to more adventures.
Was it the best thing ever? The blink says it all, right?
Yeah.
Pauline Chan, CTV News.
In BC, a court hearing was held today as the province seeks to certify a class action lawsuit against opioid makers and marketers.
We are holding multinational pharmaceutical companies accountable for their role in today's public health emergency, which was first declared in 2016. An epidemic which has claimed the lives of over 13,000 people and impacted many more families. We did it because it's the right thing to do.
The lawsuit was also filed on behalf of other Canadian governments. It's intended to speed up the process to hold dozens of companies responsible for alleged deceptive marketing of the addictive drugs. The governments are looking to obtain costs associated with the crisis. One defendant, Purdue Pharma, has already settled with BC for $150 million.
The life expectancy for Canadians has dropped for the third year in a row. Stats Canada says the average fell from 82.3 years in 2019 to 81.3 in 2022. New Brunswick saw the biggest decline last year. Saskatchewan's life expectancy has fallen the most over the past 3 years combined. Cancer and heart disease were the leading causes in Canada. They accounted for nearly 42% of all deaths last year.
Max Domi lives with type 1 diabetes, but that has not slowed down the Toronto Maple Leaf forward, and now he's touting a new tool to help manage the condition.
I was 12 years old when I was diagnosed, and pretty well documented it that my first question was if I could still play hockey. And of course, my doctor answered pretty quick and said, absolutely you can. And nowadays, with where the technology's at and how far we've come, you see in the video there, that's my new continuous glucose monitor. It's called the Dexcom G7, and it goes right to my phone. It's something so small you can hardly even feel it. And I lean on this thing every single day. So it's been a complete game changer for me and help manage my diabetes and allows me to play at the highest level in the world for my sport.
Domi says the device uploads glucose levels data to his phone every 5 minutes, and it allows him to free up more time on a day-to-day basis.
Mariah Carey's in Toronto tonight, spreading her Christmas cheer at Scotiabank Arena for a second year in a row. Carey's on her Merry Christmas One and All tour. Of course, most people want to hear her belt out that perennial favorite, All I Want for Christmas, which, according to The Economist, earns Carey about $2.5 million each year, thanks mostly to the fact it hits the airwaves not long after Halloween.
The Stars Tonight is brought to you by Lastman's Bad Boys Court-Approved Liquidation Sale.
After the break, Merriam-Webster keeps it real with its 2023 Word of the Year, the winner and the runner-ups.
This deal is historic, is huge.
Updating our top stories, Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow and Premier Doug Ford have come to an agreement in an effort to address the hole in the city's budget. Ontario will take responsibility for the Gardiner Expressway and the Don Valley Parkway. In exchange, the cities agreed not to stand in the Ford government's way when it comes to the overhaul of Ontario Place.
It's unbelievably devastating because there are kids, a partner.
Residents of Huntsville and Muskoka are reeling following a fatal crash over the weekend that claimed the lives of 4 teenagers and a mother of 2. All 4 teens have been identified as Chinese students by the Consulate General of the People's Republic of China in Toronto.
This is the very first time that food bank usage has risen while unemployment has reduced.
A new report indicates the number of people who used Ontario food banks last year went up by 38%. Which is said to be the largest single-year increase recorded by the province's food bank network. The findings also reveal 40% of visitors were first-time users.
Remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca, and you can download the CTV News app. And if you ever have a news tip, photos, or video breaking news, let us know.
In business, rising prices are forcing some Canadians to pull back, not just on their spending, but also on their social life. With more, here's Jacqueline Hansen from B&M Bloomberg.
Inflation isolation is hitting some Canadians, according to a new survey, as they cut back on activities or visiting family and friends in order to cut costs. The survey by debt management firm MNP found that half of respondents are staying home more often to save money, and about a third are socializing less. Many report feeling stress and anxiety due to inflation and interest rates, with about a third paying more now for their debt per month than they did a year ago. The financial, mental, and social pressures appear to be taking a toll. 1 in 5 respondents said they are feeling a sense of isolation or loneliness. Let's take a look at some of the closing market numbers for today. The Canadian dollar is trading higher just slightly to almost 73.5 cents US. West Texas Intermediate oil declined about 70 cents to a bit below $75 US a barrel. As for stock markets, the TSX fell 70 points to end the day at 20,032.66. That is the latest in business. I'm Jacqueline Hansen of B&M Bloomberg.
Virtually all of air transit flight attendants have voted in favor of a strike mandate. The union representing the 2,100 employees says there is a high level of dissatisfaction with their working conditions and wages. It's still possible a new contract will be settled on, but if there is a strike, it would become legal as of January 3rd. The airline says it's confident there's enough time to reach an agreement.
Online purchases are a big part of many people's holiday shopping, but a new poll suggests more and more packages are disappearing from doorsteps. A survey by FedEx Canada finds 28% of respondents had a package stolen in 2023, and that's up from 24% last year and 20% in 2021. 70% expressed worries about their delivered packages being stolen. Tips from the delivery company include tracking your packages and checking delivery notifications.
A reminder tonight, Google is poised to start deleting inactive accounts at the end of the week. So it's best to check on any accounts you haven't used in a while. Before then, those that haven't been used in at least 2 years could disappear starting on Friday. The easiest way to keep your Google account active is to sign in at least once every 2 years. The tech giant says its inactive account update is for security.
Merriam-Webster is releasing its word of the year. The publishing company is choosing authentic as its word for 2023. Merriam-Webster's editor-at-large says this year was a crisis for authenticity. The company says searches for the term authentic on its website rose to new highs throughout the year. Runners-up for the 2023 word of the year include deepfake and implode. Just ahead, bright lights and festive cheer rolling through the province. We catch up with the holiday train as it makes its way toward the GTA.
William Nylander is getting a promotion. The flashy Toronto Maple Leafs winger is moving to the first line.
Yeah, I mean, getting different looks, I think, is always good. I think we've all played together before, so I don't think it'll be anything weird.
The way it's gone for them this season is the way it's been. They've had really big nights, and they've had other nights where they haven't been effective at all. So you're just trying to find more consistency there. So you look at changing it, and we looked at some other options as well with some of the rest of our lineup and moving things around, but ultimately just sort of settled on this. The timing was right for the reasons I mentioned there in regards to both Billy and Mitch.
Nylander began the season with a 17-game point streak. His move to the number 1 line will see Mitch Marner switch to the second unit. Toronto hosts the Florida Panthers tomorrow night.
Finally tonight, another sure sign of the holidays. Christmas cheer rolling into town.
Not only spreading the spirit of the season, but lending a helping hand at a time when people need it most. Here's CTV's Tyler Fleming.
When this train rolls into town, little Joey Langlois describes it best.
Happy?
14 cars, hundreds of thousands of twinkling lights, including
the Christmas tree.
And a caboose which opens to a stage for Joey and sister Faith Marie's favorite part.
The music.
Every year is always a surprise and it's awesome.
Canadian Rockers Anyway Gang are part of the 191 live music shows as 2 trains travel through 6 Canadian provinces and 14 U.S. states to bring cheer and help to those who need it.
Everybody coming together, the enjoyment of the band and the donations.
The Canadian Pacific Kansas City holiday train is on its festive journey, helping to end hunger along the way, like at this stop in Finch, Ontario.
We serve Dundas and Stormont County.
The community food share here received a $4,000 donation from CPKC.
We've really noticed an increase in people facing food insecurity. So the more that we can donate, the door is open. We're always available to help.
While the event is free, those who attend are encouraged to donate food or cash, which have been pouring in. The holiday train has been rocking down the rails through communities across Canada for 25 years, and in that time has raised more than $22 million. After Monday's stops in Merrickville, Smiths Falls, and Perth, the holiday train chugs west for Tuesday's shows in Belleville, Trenton, and Brighton. Tyler Fleming, CTV News.
And the holiday train expected to be 3:15 in Oshawa tomorrow, 8:30 tomorrow night in Toronto at the CP Rail Yard on Runnymede. And I think it'll be quite festive for the occasion.
It will be appropriately wintry for sure. We are seeing flurries tonight, tomorrow, and into the evening, and likely on Wednesday as well. Warm up at the end of the week, though.
Thank you, Michelle. And that's it for us, but be sure to join Omar Sachedina. He's on at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Michelle Jobin and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a great night.